Okay, go ahead, Mecca.
Okay, all right. Good morning, guys. This is Making Blessed, and this is just my video for a transformational moment in my lifetime. So this is, I guess, an event that happened about 11 years ago that really kind of changed the course of my life, and it really helped me appreciate a lot of, I guess, being and always consistently, thinking of your loved ones and being present, not just taking things like that for granted. This happened when I was going to UVU for my undergrad, and one thing that I guess I didn't realize was that I had this bacterial infection right here in this area where I learned it's called the death triangle or something like that. And I had to check in with the AER, and the doctor automatically saw me, and they transferred me to the Provo Hospital. And from there, I spent next 4 days just getting um, a lot of treatment for that infection, and then after that, I ended up going home with more medication and just staying resting for the next 11 days. It really what happened is after that, I think that moment in time, it was for me crucial really to kind of be more appreciative of my again my loved ones, the way I was I guess conducting myself in life. I was really excited about life. I was really excited with, I was newlywed. I had my 3-year-old, and I was really happy with life. Though I think I needed to show more of that love. Pay attention, not just I was maybe too hung up on work and school, and I think that's that moment really kind of showed me, hey, be more uh, empathetic to everyone that you have around your loved ones, and appreciate that you're alive, that you're with them, that you're going through this journey, sharing this moments of being in the present, pay attention to those things that make up our life. So yeah, that was kind of what happened, 2008, 11 years ago.
Thanks, Mecca. I'll go ahead and give some constructive. I'll give the constructive feedback on this one.
Okay.
Um, One thing you could do that kind of like looking at the structure of this story is just try to offer like a more like engaging opening to your story. So just kind of like maybe paint. I mean, however you do that, that's kind of up to you. But just offer like more of a like painting the picture a little bit um, versus like your story is very like factual and everything. So I know in storytelling we want to try to like kind of paint a picture and offer up some imagery and stuff like that. That might be something that's just something you could do to kind of add. It's a powerful story and everything. So kind of like maybe trying to do something that kind of puts us where you were at that time and how you make us feel what you were feeling. That would just be something you could do to add to that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, do you mind if I just offer some thoughts also?
Yeah.
So first of all, Megan, I think that you have a very warm, engaging personality when you tell the story. I think one of the great things is that it's such a personal story, and in the face of life or death, basically, is what was happening to you without really knowing it. So I agree, like Chance is saying, hey, this is a pretty powerful story. And obviously it meant a lot to you in terms of a transformational moment, but in terms of a story, you started out last time saying, it was like any other day, basically. You just kind of maybe had a fever. You didn't think that you needed care, but your loved one was like, no, you need to go get care. And then your doctor was like, oh, we need to, like, this was serious. And
Hmm.
so I think one of the great things about this is the power of the experience. And the way that you deliver it is so warm and unassuming that I think, as Chance was saying, if you add just a little more structure to it, even maybe not necessarily artificial formality, but even if you had some opening, like you were saying before, it started out like any other day. And it ended up being this thing where you now reflect and you're like, wow, I could have died, and it made me appreciate the people in my life so much more.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where I was seeing a lot of positivity. You had a really strong connection to the people in your life, and everybody has a really strong connection to, different people in their life, whether it's parents, loved ones, they've got siblings. So I think that's a good strategy to connect with your viewer. And just to echo Chance and Diane, I would say hit that even harder, because that's when the story becomes really personal, and that's where I feel what you're feeling, and it just makes the story stronger from there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
All right. Sounds like it's probably my time. Okay. Well, when I started in my undergrad at the University of Utah, I was working at Discovery Gateway Children's Museum in Salt Lake City. It was a fun job with perfect coworkers, and I got paid to play games with kids, so it was just a dream job. One day, when I was working at the information desk at the front of the museum, I was approached by a man who was asking about a birthday party going on that day. Now, as I was talking with this individual, I noticed that he had a gun in a holster under his leather jacket, and our museum didn't allow weapons inside because of small children that usually interact in the museum, and I informed him of this policy. To which he responded by getting really hard in the face and saying, "Well, you're going to let me in." I informed him that we asked this policy of everybody, and he reacted by turning around and storming into the museum. Now, because he had a gun and he angrily walked right into our museum against our will, we didn't know what was going on. So we called security, who called the Salt Lake City Police Department. As we were waiting for the police to arrive, we needed to know what was going on. So I was tasked with the responsibility of watching this man from behind wall corners just to make sure nothing went awry. If the situation turned, we would need to implement measures for an active shooter and save as many people as we could. So as you can probably understand, it was a very terrifying situation for all of us, especially me, who made the guy mad and had to watch him. Now, eventually, the police arrived, called for backup, and once they had an extra squad, they moved into action. Now, the whole situation resolved very quickly, and the reason is because this individual was actually an off-duty officer who was out of uniform. So the amazing thing is, this whole situation could have easily been resolved if he would have just said 5 words: "I am a police officer," and that would have been the end of it. Now, sometimes when we're in business, we're like this police officer. We assume that other people have the same frame of reference or frame of knowledge that we have, and we don't explain ourselves further. When we do this, we don't resolve situations, and actually situations can continue to escalate far beyond anything that we expected. So the moral of the story is that effective communication can easily resolve a potentially hazardous situation.
Good job. I'll offer up some positive comments here. I really like the closing statement that you had. It kind of was a memorable closing statement, and then you provided a good kind of wrap up and summary of the story and kind of the moral of the story as well. So really good job on the closing statement.
Thank you.
Joseph, I think listening to you tell this story, I've been actually thinking about the story that you shared, but listening to you this time, I thought it was delivered really well. And first, you didn't use any filler words. Second, I felt like every word that you chose was on purpose. It was purposeful. And so I think that's great. And I agree with Chance that you had pretty good structure, especially towards the end. Having a wrap up of your story is so important. And I personally struggle with that. So I thought that was done well. In fact, your story is so compelling to me. I wonder if you can add anything to it. Like, your feelings, your emotions, you highlighted them a little bit. I think that you're right. Anybody would feel kind of terrified in that circumstance, not knowing what's going on. And I wonder if there's a few more words that would help draw us in. I felt drawn in. And then the kids, I mean, I think one of the things that I love about this story is that you're really focused on, look, we're not trying to politicize things here. We're just trying to have a safe environment for children. I think that's always a difficult thing when we start talking about weapons in public. And so for me, I really enjoyed just the entire story that you chose.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I guess if I may, I just, we've been talking about the structure, and I can see, how well, you deliver your story from the beginning, going through each of the, I guess, phases of this story, and then at the end, kind of wrapping it up all nicely with a, little package, pretty much for everybody to know the, I guess the end message to your story. I think Diane has a great point in saying the bringing up the children that were in that place at that particular time, and your feelings, perhaps even explore that a little more next time. But yeah, it sounded really well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that would be a good ad. Thank you.
Okay. You want to keep going?
Yeah, I'll take it. I guess I'll take it from here. So my story is a little bit more fun, but for me, it's kind of a blend of a frightening story and a fun story. So my dad, he's kind of an interesting guy. I'm from a small town. It's 1,000 people. There's not a lot to do, but so that kind of gives him an interesting sense of humor. Some would say an evil sense of humor. I definitely would feel, but so my dad really loves to fly. And when we were kids, we actually had a small single prop plane for a little bit. And my dad was learning how to fly, and after he started to, get kind of good, he started taking us out with him with an instructor. And so that was kind of my first experience with flying. Having the kind of sense of humor that my dad does, he thought it would be entertaining with me and my brother in the back to practice airplane stalls while in the plane. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with that, but basically pilots have to do this practice where they're not going fast enough to get enough lift under the wings or enough air flowing over the wings. And it basically feels like you are falling out of the sky. So me and my brother were in the back seat of the plane, holding hands and crying. We were fairly young at the time. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but old enough to feel silly, like with me and my brother in the back, frankly crying. And the thing that I remember the most out of that entire experience was my father's evil laugh in the front as he maneuvered the plane and completed the stall perfectly. So definitely for me, one of the scariest, and now looking back on it, more funny moments of my life as well.
That's great.
Excellent.
Awesome. Wow. So are you a pilot too, or?
Oh no. He tried to, that pretty much ruined that chance of that ever happening. He always told me when I was a kid that's what he wanted me to do, and I was like, this was not a good way to make me want to pursue that path. So
Can I say some? I guess. Can I start with the feedback, the positive feedback?
Yes.
Okay. I automatically start getting drawn to the story because I find it interesting. Like that. You don't hear that a lot. A kid and airplane with the dad and the brother. But I think I can see authenticity, which is one of those points in the lectures, that the reading that we had, and that is important. To be a leader, you have to make it real, right? So I like that. I like that about you.
thank you.
I really appreciated how you're able to reflect on it. I think it's, you were saying at the beginning, it's kind of one of those moments where now you can look back and find some humor. But as young kids, that's scary.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think you had a brilliant setup to this. You had a really good flow of how you presented this, even down to the detail of describing how horrified you were and then saying the words. And we were probably a little bit too old anyway, but still terrified. I thought that really set it up, because you imagine maybe like these like 4-year-olds or something scared, and then you draw it to, it's teens or something. I don't know how old you were. But I think it came together very well, and it made the story very entertaining, and it drew me in for sure.
Thank you. I will say I was not a teenager at the time, so I at least have that much going for me. But I was probably 8, somewhere in there, 8 or 9. So, I was, yeah.
I like that you brought in the fact that it's with your brother. Having those experiences with the brotherly love.
Yeah, I don't think we ever forgot that, for sure.
Well, Chance, I thought it was a very good presentation. The only thing I would recommend for improvement or just some feedback about your story, I would say watch your filler words. In the beginning of it, there was a couple of ums that slightly detracted from the story, but all around, I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
My turn? Am I up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the summer after my freshman year in college, I went on a hiking trip with one of my very best friends down to southern Utah. Her name was Caroline. She's my very best friend, and she and another friend were expert hikers, but I was not. Our plans included a particular hike at night, and when we started out on this hike, it was a pretty decent night. The air wasn't too cold, and we were hiking under a full moon. The light was really beautiful, but we still needed to wear headlamps. So with our headlamps on, we started walking. It was pretty stable, solid terrain, but pretty soon thereafter, it started to climb steeper. The trail was getting steeper and steeper, and I was getting more tired and fatigued. We started going back and forth over switchbacks, and I could tell that the air was becoming incredibly cold. There were multiple times when I wondered, oh, is it going to get warmer? Well, we finally got to a lookout point and rested. And Caroline, shortly thereafter, turned to me and she said, Diane, we're coming to a part of the trail where there's a chain, and I need you to hold on to this chain. Whatever you do, don't step to the side and do not let go of the chain. So I thought, okay, she's making it very clear to me that I need to hold on to this chain. Well, we came up to the point where there was a chain, and even though there was the moonlight in my headlight, I really couldn't see anything to the right or the left. So I just held onto the chain, and I could see that it was a narrow path, but we walked up and we held onto the chain and we made it up to a landing. We ultimately slept out on that landing, and in the morning, I awoke to the most breathtaking, brilliant sunrise. It's a sunrise I'll never forget. Even though we hiked in the light of the full moon, it wasn't until daylight, when we were hiking down from the cliffs of insanity, did I realize how dangerous the hike had been. Do you know which hike I'm talking about? It's the one that includes Grotto's Trailhead, Refrigerator Canyon, Walter's Wiggles, Hogsback, and finally the summit of Angel's Landing. Have any of you hiked Angel's Landing in Zion's National Park?
No, and I've been wanting to really bad with my wife, actually.
Well,
we've been to many other places, but that one,
I have to take a look at it. I will tell you that I hiked Angel's Landing foolishly at night, but under a beautiful moon, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Now, having gone through a few rounds of adversity and having witnessed and been a part of people's lives as they experience adversity, I have thought multiple times that the hike up to Angel's Landing and down is definitely a metaphor for the journey of life. And it's helped me to appreciate when we are able to be anchored, so holding on to that chain and climbing really narrow paths in our lives, and experiencing the sunrises when we've gone through adversity, and then coming back down and acknowledging that we've actually experienced and accomplished something. when we at the time really couldn't see what was happening before us, but then we had the ability to reflect and understand. Those are things that I think about now, having gone through a few rounds of adversity, having lived a few years of life, and thinking about that really pronounced experience.
Awesome.
Good job.
Thanks.
Very good.
Yeah. Obviously, big plus. You've got really deep metaphors in there, which obviously is mentioned as a strategy. But I think it connected really well. It painted a picture, and it came out very clear what you're teaching and trying to convey through your message.
Definitely yeah. Oh.
I would say the imagery was really good, because it kind of made you, as you're kind of listening to the story, when I'm listening to a story, I always try to imagine myself being there and kind of what that was like. So kind of the imagery and talking about, holding onto the chain and just using that and the sunrise, it just kind of like put me there in that moment. So really good job with that.
Yeah, I was going to say the storytelling, that was good. The storytelling the whole through, I mean, you describing all the details, everything that you described along the story, that definitely is that's the one that you're looking for. It's like, wait, so let me hear a little more. And the metaphors, of course, that you did really good at the end when you're.
Well, I risked telling this thinking that somebody might have hiked to the Angel's Landing, but maybe this will give you a sense of interest.
For sure, yeah.
Well, Diane, for improvement, gonna have a hard time on this one, but I think the only thing I could really think of is with storytelling, it helps to establish at the beginning of your story that things are in order. So I think it could be even stronger if you shared a little bit more about how you're not a hiker. Like, for instance, just how you work as a professional, if you've got a strong commitment to that and it keeps you from doing that, or whether you have a displeasure to it. Tell us a little bit more about that. Help us really empathize with you and get in your head so that we understand the situation even better. But all around, I thought it was really good.